You're listening to the Staging Sips podcast with Lori Fisher. This podcast is dedicated to helping real estate staging CEOs build healthy businesses that grow, flow, and thrive. Hey there, just popping in before the episode one more time to let you know that the doors to Rethink You are now open. Rethink You Accelerate is now open for enrollment, and you can go to the website rethinkHomeInteriors.com/Rethink You, RETHINKYOU. We'll put it in the show notes to come and join us inside the program. If you have been loving the content that I am creating and sharing here on the podcast, and you want to learn more, you want to learn more deeply, and you want to have the community building of twice monthly calls with other staging business owners, then Rethink You Accelerate is for you. So love to see you in the classroom. Again, doors are open now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy to be with you today. And I'm super happy to be with you today because today is the first podcast episode I'm recording after my braces have come off. So it's very exciting. I actually can talk a little bit better today. So this is very exciting to me. So today we are talking about the absolute best way to handle change requests. Now, if you haven't gotten any change requests in your business, hats off to you, but I'm going to say that you are going to get them at some point. You will have somebody make some minor or major change request of you, and this will absolutely get you prepared. And if you're a business owner who has received them and they just freak you out and just make you so nervous, we're going to walk through today a process for handling them and how to think about them. Because I'm going to dive into both like the logistics of how to handle these situations, what policies you want to have in place in your business, but also how to manage your mindset around these things when they do happen. Because really, our brains can go to all or nothing thinking and be very catastrophic, like the sky is falling, we're going to lose this client, all this stuff. And we just want to be able to recognize it and plan for it and be able to manage our brains much better when these things happen. So let's just start out by defining what change requests are. It's not there. There are several kinds within our staging businesses. They're not all created equally. So what do I mean by that? So some changes are extensive. So those would be things like maybe the client wants to swap out a headboard or, a piece of furniture that would require a mover, more than one person, possibly for you renting a truck if that's your business model, or tying up one of your own trucks that might need to be available for, lots of other staging and destaging appointments. It could mean the possible purchase of new inventory. Say somebody has an exterior space, like for us in the Northeast, we don't stock exterior outdoor furniture because it just gets damaged. So if somebody might say that they feel like their patio is lackluster and they need some outdoor furniture. And we need to be able to navigate that request and handle that and know how we're going to handle that in that case. So it could mean the possibility of purchasing new inventory if that is the case. Other requests are minor. Just a few items here or there, maybe art, accessories, lamps, lighting, things like that. Maybe it's a few, like they want to swap out the current bar stools or counter stools for others. Others happen without anyone ever contacting us. And this is when people move our things around or they bring in some of their own items to supplement what we've done. So either way, we've got kind of 3 degrees of what does a change request look like. And that last one, we may not even realize until we see the MLS pictures. So it's happened without us. And I know many of us have the no moving items clauses in our client agreement, but I'm going to talk to you about how really to handle this, even though it is in your client agreement. Okay. So any which way a change request comes in, very often it can feel unsettling. We can feel stressed by it. We can feel bothered, insulted, annoyed, worried. We can feel like they have no clue what they're talking about. Stay in your lane. I don't tell you how to, price a house or, anything like that. Or did you see what your house looked like before our team came in? There's all these kind of defense mechanisms that our brains can go to. And really, in actuality, all it is people asking questions, and whatever their motivation is, it's simply asking a question. So I want to start by pointing you back to episode 6 about grounded communication and communication plans and developing them. And in that episode, there's also a link to our communication plan that you can download for free. All of the ways that we answer like every kind of question you could get inside of your business. So go back to that episode, and we'll include the link to the communication plan here in the show notes as well. So you can go to the show notes and grab that just free resource for you. So anyway, in that episode, I really wanted to guide you into planning ahead and kind of that idea of planning for strategic pessimism, like things aren't going to go well, and how can we be ready for them when they don't? And it walks you through how to get yourself into a grounded space so that you can answer from a place of neutrality and not like stress and fear and scarcity and worry and defensiveness and all of that. Because at the end of the day, one of the things we really need to do with our handling of these situations is we really want to preserve the relationship, whether we choose to work with that particular maybe realtor or investor again in the future is a different story, but we want to do our best to preserve the relationship and be very professional and kind of high road until the close of business with this particular client. Because especially if your inventory is in someone's house or at risk, you don't want to put somebody feeling negative about you while you've got your inventory in their location. In addition, if it's a realtor, you want people to think of you as a professional, and whether they were satisfied or not with your service at the end of the day, they can't say that you were a jerk, so we want to start by thinking about that person, thinking long-term for our business. But so like I said, we want to understand that change requests are just like any other question. That's all. New clients typically don't understand staging, and they may ask for requests simply because the staging may feel more sparse than they were anticipating, or it just is different than what they were expecting. Even though, you can share images of what you've done online, sometimes what happens is people see the photos online and they look incredible, and they don't realize that in the actual space, when you're actually in it, it may feel a little sparse, or it may feel a little bit different than how it presents in the online photo. And of course, we know that in-person experience, the way we've done things in person have been in the best interest of the photos, which is what they're seeing. And that the in-person experience, even though it should also feel really great to somebody who's used to maybe having a lot of things in their house or being a maximalist, it might feel like we are almost too minimalist. And so people might want us to add more to our staging when it's not necessary, or add something to a wall where they used to have something hanging, that is what I typically call like low return on investment walls. Like they're not high impact. They're pass through spaces. They're not really a focal point and that kind of thing. So that might be a reason for a request. And we want to do our best, like I said, to preserve that relationship at the end of the day. So having a plan and procedure in place for these types of requests, so we're not caught off guard, is going to be key. So I want to just dive into the best way to start to think about your policy. I'll even share with you kind of the skeleton framework of our own languaging that we use when we have had requests in the past. We don't tend to get them as much now just because we work with the same group of realtors over and over again. And we typically, our newer realtors have been referred by their colleagues at this point. So we have more kind of social credibility and social cred at this point. So anyway, so the first thing is, when somebody reaches out to you with a request, it's best to get on the phone with them if you can, and not go through email. And because email can not come across the way that you want it to. So you first want to get on the phone, whether they've reached out to you via email or text, get on the phone and have a conversation. That is the first thing, because you want to be able to, reassure them and do all this stuff that we're going to talk about next. So, but the first thing is just to get curious with the request. Like, what is it that they are concerned about? That's always where I like to start. So if somebody requests, a new sofa, like maybe they don't like the style of sofa, I would say, tell me a little bit more about that. What are you concerned about? Is it the color? Is it the size? What's going on with that? So that they can just tell me what their concern is. Because typically, like maybe they would say, well, I feel like it might be too light for the room, or it might be too dark for the room, or something like that. And then I have something to respond to with it. I can say, well, in that room we were working with, you had light wall to wall carpet, you had light rugs. We needed to bring in some depth and contrast in order to make the room feel alive. If we went too light, it would get too washed out in the photos, because the camera really does like contrast. And that's a focal point. We want it to be big. We want it to be bold, whatever. I can begin to reassure them of why we made the decision that we made. And a lot of times that's all some people need. They just need you to back up the reason why you've done something. So that's why when, if you go back to the episode about consultations, and I off the top of my head, I'm not remembering which episode that was, but I talk about the fact that the way our team thinks about spaces is we have high return on investment views and low return on investment views. And on those, so if we are saying to the client, well, this is a high return on investment view, so this is why we did it this way. Or if they're requesting, I had somebody once request a piece of art or a mirror along this hallway that went from the front entry stairway into this gorgeous, huge, large 2-story great room. And they were requesting some piece of art along the wall of this very small hallway. And I had said, well, we didn't place anything there because it's very low return on investment value. What is catching your clients, your prospective buyer's eye as they're in the foyer is the 2-story, stone fireplace that you can see through the hallway. So this doesn't need anything. We want them to really just focus on that view. Once we said that, they were like, oh, that makes total sense. So sometimes it's just a matter of explaining why you've done something, because again, a lot of people that you'll be working with for a while may be new to this. And in particular, homeowners, realtors and investors will get used to how you do things. Some people will express that they don't like something you've placed. And so this is one where sometimes people really they're feeling a lack of control. And we've had this happen over the years a couple of times. We once had a seller who hired us on their own. They had found us, I think, so a member of their church had referred us to them. And her house had been on the market for 18 months with 3 different realtors, and it had never sold. And she had realtors tell her she needed to paint rooms, and she had to do, all kinds of upgrades, all of which she and her husband did. Only to having it not sell. So they ultimately had moved into a new home when they had hired us to stage it, because this woman from the church was herself a realtor and said, you don't really want to sell it empty. So she reached out to us and we did our work, and she had decided to stay all day while we worked, which was another challenge. I think that's also on the communication plan, how we handle that now. But she, at the end of the day, told me how much she hated everything that we had done, and that she didn't understand it, and she didn't understand the way the colors worked, and she didn't understand the way that, all the things, literally everything. And I just looked at her and I said, we actually have just sprinkled fairy dust on this house. You watch. It's going to sell really fast, because I knew that, we had several years of experience under our belts. And I know that the way that we stage an empty house is very, very effective. And don't you know, I said, keep it in place. Let's regroup after the first weekend on the MLS, which she agreed to. And the house sold the first day that it was on the MLS before anybody stepped foot across the threshold. They bought it based on the photos alone. So sometimes some people just you need to let the market tell them, um, that you've done a good job. So that is always one way you can do it too. It's just, let's get it on the market for the first weekend and let's just see what the traffic is. I feel very confident that we've done a great job for you, but if by the end of that first weekend you're not seeing traffic, then let's regroup and let's talk about it. Okay. So that's like, you can buy a little time there. Then that helps them feel like they're a little bit more in control. There's a game plan because they think it's going to fail. So that's another way you can approach it. And sometimes they're just looking for something to blame for a sale not happening very quickly. Like maybe we had somebody years ago who they had a house where it was not disclosed to us, but they had a major septic tank issue, which was they had on their disclosures, their seller's disclosure, but we didn't know it. And that was really preventing the sale of their house. But she had reached out to ask if we could add a coffee table to this one room where we had chairs kind of nestled around a fireplace. And she thought maybe we needed a little accent table or coffee table or something like that. And thought that was making the difference between the selling of the house. And I got curious and I said, has anybody commented that room or that seems to be missing a coffee table, or that room in particular is preventing them from buying the house? And she acknowledged no. And I said, okay, well, that's really good information, because if that were the case, then I would say we definitely should consider that as an option. But since we're not hearing that feedback, I'd be curious what what is the feedback that you're getting? And that's when I learned about the septic system. And I said, oh, okay. So your house actually may take a little bit longer to sell. It's not the staging. It's just that you need a buyer who's willing to. It was a very old house too. It was a very old historic house, like late 1700s or something. So it was like a special buyer. That's all that was. But anyway, so that was just by getting curious. So that's the first thing, get curious. The next step is to seek it, to provide reassurance, like I've just shared with you. If you feel confident that your work is solid and in keeping with the quality that you deliver on your projects that are typical of this, house or this neighborhood or this demographic or whatever, you can feel really good in giving some reassurance first. Now, a lot of people will feel better with that, and some people might push further, right? So what happens when reassurance doesn't work? Then you can share your policy around changes. So let me share with you the skeleton of how we do it. So we just say, if it's like small stuff, right? Like artwork or whatever, we'll just say, sure, we'd be happy to replace, so they're not reassured. They feel like they still want something. And at that point, I'll say, sure, we can accommodate replacing up to like 5 items that you think are the most important. So just let me know what those things are. But as long as we don't need to require a moving team or use of a large truck, all the items can be installed by one person, I'm happy to do that for you, just free of charge. That makes people feel great. You may resent having to do it in the moment, but it will, in the long term of your business. I have never regretted having done that to maintain a relationship, right? So, and typically we've learned from it, right? So if it's a repeat customer, then we kind of know how to manage their expectations moving forward, and maybe how we style it for that particular person so that it just feels a little bit better to them. So that's the first thing. We'd be happy to replace up to X items as long as they don't require a moving team, and all items can be installed by one person. That's a great policy to have. I know we have locally companies that pick up donations, and they say that we will receive donations that can be loaded into our truck by one person. So you can't put a sofa out there. You can't put, a king size mattress, for example, out on the curb, or a huge armoire for this company to take as a donation. So that's the first thing. Now, if it's bigger items, you will say to the client, we can definitely do that. Our first availability to bring those items over and make that change. And I would, again, limit the number of items that they have. I'm happy to switch out like 3 of those large items. We can definitely do that. Our first availability with the trucks and the team to do this would be X, and you can make it a couple of weeks out, 10 days out. So they've got to sit and probably see the house sell most likely before, you even get back there. And the fee to do it will be X. So, if you have a team that's moving it, it'll be, I don't know, like a $500 delivery fee or $1,000 delivery fee or whatever that is. And I'll also have to recalculate what your rental rate is with these new items that we're going to be swapping out. So we'll have to check that as well. So typically what happens at that point is they say, oh, okay, let me think about it and get back to you, or let me let the client know and I'll get back to you. And a lot of times it just goes away at that point. But it's a great way to sound like you're being helpful, you're being responsive, and you're willing to do this for them, but you're not getting taken advantage of in the process. You're not doing it for free, because this is when a company signs off on you and your client agreement, they are agreeing that you are the professional that they are leaning on for this and your expertise. And certainly, it's subjective, some of people's opinions, but at least if you are going out to replace large items, you are getting compensated to do it. So, and you're not taking your team and hustling them off of other work that you could be doing. So those are the first two. So if there's small requests and, reassurance doesn't work, what you can do to handle it if they're large. The last one is if people have changed your things. So if people have moved your items or added to your items or something like that, a lot of times I know personally, I just let it go at this point. I have enough photos, for our portfolio, for our website, for social media. And I don't really need, every photo at this point. So maybe if you're newer in business, for you, it might feel like a bigger hit when somebody changes your items. But what I have found over the years is even we've never had wholesale large changes, but smaller changes don't tend to impact the saleability of a house. We may not like them. We may have wished people hadn't done them, but they don't impact the saleability. If you want to bring it up, one time I did bring it up to a client where it seemed like each time we worked with them, something slightly was being added to the project. And I mentioned something. I said, I was looking at the MLS photos and I noticed some things that aren't our inventory. I said, I don't know if my team brought those things in, or I'm not sure what that was, but I just need to know, were those something that you guys added so I can make sure that our mover doesn't take them? And then I'm just curious what was the thought process behind them, because maybe it's something we can tweak and fix in our staging process for you in the future. And she had just said that her assistant, he likes to decorate, he likes to add things, and it makes him feel like he's doing something. And I was like, okay, that's totally fine. And his work never impacted the overall sale, but I just thought I'd bring it up to let her know that I noticed it. I also let her know one time I noticed something and I said, oh my gosh, I think it was an occupied listing where we had brought some inventory in. And I said, I noticed something on a windowsill in the kitchen, and we were talking. I said, oh my gosh, I just noticed that our team actually left something on the windowsill. I'm going to have to give them that feedback. I'm really, really sorry that our team left that, and it's in the photos. I'll make sure we don't do that again moving forward, knowing full well it wasn't my team. It was her person. So I wanted to give some guidance, like we don't put things on the windowsills so that it didn't happen again. So I just handle it that way. If I handle it at all, most of the time now, I don't handle it at all. It does not bother me. I don't say a word. So as much as we don't like it, we can manage our brains to be like, it's fine. It's not going to impact the overall sale, and it's not going to damage my reputation. I think that's what we think. So anyway, that is our sip for the week. I actually thought it was going to be a really short sip, but it turns out to be about an average length sip. So you all have a wicked good week, and I will see you next week on the podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Staging Sips podcast. If you love what you've learned here today and you want to go deeper and learn even more about how to market and grow your staging business more strategically, I would love for you to join us inside of the Rethink You Accelerate Mentorship Program. To get more details and get yourself on the wait list, you can go to rethinkhomeinteriors.com/waitlist. Looking forward to seeing you inside.